ما یک حزب را که صحیح عمل میکنند میگذاریم عمل بکنند و باقی همه را ممنوع اعلام میکنیم و همه نوشتجاتی که اینها کردند و بر خلاف مسیر اسلام و مسیر مسلمین است ما همه اینها را از بین خواهیم.
For nearly 5 decades, the clerics have taken control of the government in Iran with a reactionary and fundamentalist mindset, initiating repression and removal of freedom in the country. However, the borders of Iran seemed too narrow for this reactionary ideology. Therefore, from the very beginning, Khomeini, with the promise of an Islamic revolution and not an Iranian revolution, established the constitutional law of the Guardianship of the Jurist, the expansion and permeation of this fundamentalist ideology, and began to encroach upon neighboring countries. By creating dependent proxy groups in Lebanon, Palestine, Syria and Iraq, it engaged in terrorist actions, paved the way for the Iran-Iraq war, and since then our country has seen nothing but tension and crisis both inside and outside its borders. In this video, we will review a part of the record of this terroristic clerical regime. November the 4th, 1979, the US Embassy was occupied and American diplomats were taken hostage in Tehran for 444 days. December the 7th, 1979, Shahryar Shafiq, an associate of the Pahlavi court, was assassinated in Paris. October the 23rd, 1983, a bombing occurred at the headquarters of American and French forces in Lebanon, resulting in 241 deaths. March the 8th, 1986, 3 French citizens were kidnapped in Lebanon. July the 13th, 1989, Abdulrahman Qasemlu, the Secretary General of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, was assassinated in Vienna. April the 24th, 1990, Dr. Kazem Rajavi, the representative of the National Council of Resistance of Iran at the United Nations in Geneva, was assassinated. August the 6th, 1991, Shahpur Bakhtiar, the last Prime Minister of the former Shah, was assassinated in Paris. March the 15th, 1992, Mohammad Hossein Naqdi, a representative of the National Council of Resistance of Iran in Italy, was assassinated. September the 17th, 1992, Sadegh Sharafkandi, the Secretary General of the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan, was assassinated in the Mykonos restaurant in Berlin. Throughout the 1990s, there were serial killings of intellectuals and opponents, including Forouhar, Sami, and Christian priests in Iran. The clerics embarked on creating and arming affiliated groups in neighboring countries to spread their reactionary thoughts and create deterrents for their own security. This included the establishment, training and arming of Hezbollah in Lebanon since the 1980s, financial and military support for Hamas, financial and military support for Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the establishment, training and arming of various Shia militia groups in Iraq, such as the Kataib Hezbollah, providing weaponry and military support for the Houthis in Yemen, and training and forming Zainabiyun brigades from Pakistani fundamentalist fighters for intervention in Syria. They trained and organized the Fatemiyun brigade of Afghan fighters for fighting in Syria, and through these forces they entangled neighboring countries in insecurity, massacres, waves of migration and homelessness. This included military intervention and the massacre of the Syrian people in support of Bashar al-Assad by sending Quds and militia forces, resulting in 500,000 deaths and millions of displaced people. Military intervention and the creation of sectarian wars in Iraq during the 1980s led to the killing, displacement and migration of millions, turning Iraq into a breeding ground for terrorism and fundamentalism. But above all, the people of Iran have been subjected to repression, pressure and restrictions for the past 5 decades. From the very next day of the anti-monarchy revolution, the repression of women, religious minorities, various ethnicities and political groups began. March 9, 1979, the regime's first steps to impose mandatory hijab faced 6 days of protests from free-thinking women. January 28, 1980, there was an attack on the city of Gombat and the repression of the Turkmen people. April 24, 1980, there was a widespread attack on cities in Kurdistan province. June 20th, 1981, the repression of a 500,000-strong demonstration of Mujahideen supporters in Tehran took place. In August 1988, 30,000 political prisoners were massacred in prisons across the country. July 9, 1999, student protests in the university dormitory were suppressed. In the summer and autumn of 2009, the nationwide uprising of the Iranian people after the presidential election was suppressed. 28th of December 2017, a nationwide uprising of the Iranian people against rising prices that started in Mashhad was suppressed. November 16th, 2018, the November uprising was suppressed and at least 1,500 protesters were killed in 2 days. January 11th, 2020, public protests against the downing of the Ukrainian airplane by the IRGC were suppressed. September 15th, 2022, the brutal murder of Mahsa Amini and the suppression of the nationwide uprising of the Iranian people resulted in at least 700 deaths and hundreds of injuries and blinding due to pellets fired by special forces. September 30th, 2022, the massacre of people in Zahedan, known as the Bloody Friday in Zahedan, occurred. December 28th, 2025, the nationwide uprising of the Iranian people was suppressed, resulting in the killing of tens of thousands in just 2 days. This is just a drop in the ocean of the cleric's criminal record. For this reason, today the people of Iran are not only not saddened by the removal or killing of the regime's figures, who have all been complicit in these crimes, but are joyful because of it. Has anything other than the actions of this regime placed it against the people of Iran and the entire world?